Hey guys, so today I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read in April. I did finish 10 books and got about halfway through an 11th, so I'm quite excited about that. Even though they were all fairly short, I feel like I've finally gotten back into the reading mood and developing back my reading habits. So I am quite happy. I think I rated them all pretty high actually. I think overall I had a pretty solid month. So hopefully I can keep this momentum going into May. I'll be posting my TBR tomorrow, but we are going into the NBA playoffs, so not sure how much reading I'm going to get done. So for now, let's jump into the wrap up. The first book that I finished in April was Cut by Patricia McCormick. This is a YA novel about a girl named Callie who is currently in a mental institution. So she is there for self-harm and for her depression, but she refuses to talk about it. She is mute. And it's a very short novel, but we just follow her stay through the hospital. I really enjoyed the plot of this novel and the simplistic writing style. She wasn't trying to add or overshadow anything. She just kept it basic, but still unique in its own way. And I really related to the characters, especially our main character, Callie. I had so many connections with her, both her depression and the self-harm and her issues with a parent, and there were so many aspects of this book that I related to that I could really appreciate it. This was a very character-driven novel, and I think when stories cover these kinds of topics, it's better done that way. It is the characters that drive these stories and their development. So because of my history, I did better understand the different connections and relationships that the characters had to one another. And overall, I just really enjoyed it. It was a quick read, and it's hard to put down. So I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I picked up The Gathering by Dan Pawlowski, and this is the first book in the Shadow House trilogy. It is a middle grade horror thriller series about 5 kids that are called to this house, the Shadow House, and they are brought there for different reasons, but they all end up being trapped there in this now haunted house. So I did not think I would like this book as much as I did. I saw it in chapters quite often, and I was very intrigued by the cover, as I'm sure most of you are too. It really drew me in. But I wasn't convinced to pay money for it because it is hardcover, and I didn't know if I would like it or if it would be cliche, but it was really well done. I did read it in less than 24 hours. It isn't scary, but it definitely has some creepy aspects, and there were times that I was surprised by things that they did in the plot and pictures that they showed, because it is middle grade, but it pushed the boundaries of that quite a bit. So throughout the book there are some creepy pictures that go along with whatever they're looking at in the story, and I felt like this added a lot to the overall reading experience. So I was thrown off by one of the twists at the end. I didn't expect something so intricately placed to go over my head. But overall, the writing was really smooth and engaging, and the gray kind of style pages were really fitting for the story. So overall, I thought it was really well done. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then for a year-a-thon, I picked up Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. This is one that I've had on my shelf for quite some time, so I'm quite excited that I can say I finally read it. I did pick up the audiobook of this, and I listened to the one narrated by Christopher Casanova, I think. Casanova, I think is the way. I'm probably saying that wrong. But I rented the audiobook from my library, and at times I listened to it on its own, or I listened to it as I was reading along, and I think having the audiobook made me enjoy the book so much more. The story was very weird, but very engaging, and it was a lot darker than I remember the Disney movie to be. But having the audiobook really enhanced the experience because he was able to add a different tone to each character and make them very unique in their own way. And so you always knew who was talking or what was part of the narration, and it made the story go so smoothly, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Easily the best book that I read this month was Cinderella. I loved this book so much. I don't even have words to explain how much I loved it, so if I had to pick just one, it would be perfection. From beginning to end, the Cinderella story was followed perfectly, and there were, of course, illustrations to go along with it, and it almost wasn't long enough, even though it was. It just went so fast. Not gonna lie, I cried finishing it. I don't know if it was the nostalgia or the story or the writing, but it was all just perfect for me. and one of my favorite books ever. Cinderella is one of my favorite stories ever. So, of course, a 5 out of 5 stars. I picked up Alex and Ada Volume 2, and this is by Jonathan Luna and Sarah Vaughn. Last month, I believe, I read the first volume. Loved it. I think I liked this one even better, maybe just a little bit less. This one follows more of the character development and more of where the plot is going, and less like the world development and the sci-fi introduction to the robots. So Ada is developing her own personality, and she's learning about the world, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I loved every second of it. So I read this in one sitting. It is a graphic novel, so it's very, very easy to read. I can't wait to pick up the third one. 4.5 out of 5 stars, which it just wasn't quite perfect. Hopefully the third one is perfect. Then I decided to pick up an audiobook, and I listened to I Hate My Selfie by Shane Dawson. When I was younger, I loved Shane Dawson. I used to watch his videos all the time, but he did more like sketches and skits, whereas now he's kind of like daily vlogging, but not really. And I recently come to re-obsess over his videos. I think he's really funny, and I've wanted to read his book for a while, so I thought, why not listen to it? I got an Audible account, and so far I'm enjoying it. So this book is just a collection of short stories and essays that he's written about his life, and because I have followed him for so long, I already kind of knew most of it, but this book was released before he came out, so he was still dating Lisa, so listening to it, you kind of had to distance yourself from it and realize where he was at the time. So overall, I still really enjoyed it, and I'm probably going to listen to his other book. I think it's called It Gets Worse. So I'm probably going to pick that one up soon, but this one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I finally picked up Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I said if I didn't read it this month, I would get rid of it. I sat down, I got through it, and I actually loved it. So this is an adult fiction novel following a girl named Camille, who is a reporter, and she is sent on a story back in her hometown where she left on kind of negative terms. So she has to go and kind of reconnect with everybody to get as much information as she can about 2 young girls that were murdered. So there is a lot more backstory to this plot besides that, but because it is a mystery psychological thriller, I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but that's just the basic that you see on the back synopsis. So just know that I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It is one of the few adult thriller that I've read, and it's technically the first Gillian Flynn book that I read. I read her short story, The Grown Up. Thought it was okay. This one I loved. The writing flew very well, but if I had to make a note, I would have liked to see more backstory and more references to the articles that she was supposed to be writing. So sometimes you got the vibe that she was there for a different reason, or you forgot why the original plot was set up. So it was her debut novel, so for that, good job. Because I liked the first book so much, I picked up You Cant Hide, which is the second book in the Shadow House trilogy, and I didn't like this one as much as the first. I was really disappointed, and I don't know if it's because the plot kind of steered different than where it had originally set up, or if it's because it was kind of overdone and it just kind of was throwing in plot twists to fill in space, but this one seemed to drag so much more, and it wasn't as engaging. It was still creepy, so I'll give it that. It did still keep me on my toes, but the rest of the story lacked in that way. The characters seemed to fall a little bit flatter, so yeah. I'm hoping that the third book ties it up. I don't think it has a title or anything yet, so I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. When it comes out, I'll probably read it just to see what ends up happening in the end, but 3 out of 5 stars. So I did end up starting the Boundless by Kenneth Oble. I think that was on my TBR for last month or the month before, and I DNF'd it after about 80 pages. It didn't grab me. It didn't appeal to me. I got very confused. It was slated as a middle grade, and they treated him very young, but then he would talk about going to university, and I got very confused. So I don't know if trains are just my thing, but in the synopsis it talks about that there's a murder on the train, and then they have to figure it out. So the murder doesn't happen until like 70 pages in, and it's only a 300-page book. So by the time I actually got to the murder and where the story was going after that, I was like, okay, no, didn't grab me, so I gave it up. Then I read a book on my iPad, and that was Once She Dreamed by Abby Glines. I got this for $1 something on Kindle, and I'm a huge Abby Glines fan, but this was not her best novel in my opinion. It is much shorter than her other novels. This one was only about 100-ish pages, and because of the length, I feel like that's where we lost the character development. But it is a YA contemporary leading into new adult romance. So it is about a young girl named Sammy who is working at a bakery shop with her mother. Her mother doesn't own it. She has 4 other sisters, 3 other sisters and a brother. I just read it a couple days ago. I should remember that. There were a lot of sisters. And one day she meets this very handsome fellow who seems to have a lot of money. So it has always been her dream to escape her small town, and he will probably be the opportunity that gets her there. So I did love reading about Sammy's family and her friends, but I didn't love reading about Sammy herself. I found her to be very naive and very impulsive and very unrealistic, but she was an 18-year-old girl, so you kind of have to go with that. But at the same time, I'm hoping through the second companion end of the series, we get some more details about her decisions. Because it's Abby Glines and I still loved it, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So then the last book that I actually finished in April was I Work at a Public Library, and this is by Sheridan. So this I'd seen, I think on Goodreads, I'd seen a couple of people talking about it. So it is just a short collection of stories and antics of this girl's experience working as a librarian. It was such a fun and quick read. It's kind of broken up into chapters, but then talks about all of the different experiences and conversations she's had with people. So sometimes it seems kind of outrageous and extravagant, and you go, people can actually act like that. But I work in retail, and you realize that people actually can act like that. So I just found it to be funny and refreshing, and I really enjoyed it. It was a really nice pick-me-up. You can pick it up and put it down, but I read it in probably 24 hours or less. I read it in between some things. So if you love to read, which I'm sure you do, I would recommend picking this up. Did I say I gave that 5 out of 5 stars? Because I gave that 5 out of 5 stars. And finally, the book that I'm currently reading is You by Charles Benoit. This is one that my friend lent to me, and I'm finally getting to. I feel bad. I've had it for so long, but I'm reading it. So this is a YA mystery. I'm calling it a mystery because I'm about 70 pages in, and it started out saying, like, talking about blood and, like, death, and then it stops. So I'm not quite sure what happened, which is where the mystery ties in. But what I didn't know is it's told in second person. So as you're reading, it's saying you and you didn't expect this and you do this and you see this, and that's a very different experience for me. I don't read a lot of second person, so I'm enjoying this so far, and it's just a standalone, I believe, so I'm quite excited to see what the big twist is and what happens. So yes, finally, after my camera dying 3 times, that is the end of my April wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you read any of the books that I talked about, make sure you let me know down below, and please let me know what some of your favorite books that you read in April were. Like I said, I'm being very ambitious for May, but you will see that tomorrow. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye!